Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is still playing out this massive bullish signal on the daily time frame and is still playing out this short-term bullish divergence as we are now getting closer towards the next major area of liquidations. So I'll be talking about that in just a moment alongside Ethereum now entering into a sideways price range, but still flashing a warning signal in the short term. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just before getting into the Bitcoin charts today, taking a look at the Bitcoin news today, and on Friday we saw another decent net inflow into the spot Bitcoin ETFs. This time around, it was a net inflow of around $250 million US. And so, of course, this is good news, seeing the inflows are starting to pick up towards the end of the week here, because obviously during the week, as I was saying during the week, we were starting to see less and less net inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs. Because first of all, on Monday, we saw a net inflow of $237 million US. On Tuesday, we saw a net inflow of over $300 million. On Wednesday, we saw a net inflow of only $154 million. On Thursday, we only saw a net inflow of $108 million approximately. So once again, over the last few days, we were starting to see a decline in inflows, but on Friday, with that net inflow of around $252 million, this is good news for Bitcoin. And in case you're new to all of this, the reason why this is considered bullish for Bitcoin is because these are spot Bitcoin ETFs, which basically means that amount of money, the net inflows right here, is coming into the ETFs, and then the ETF providers like BlackRock or Fidelity, for example, are having to take that money to buy actual spot Bitcoin on the spot market in order to back the ETFs. But obviously, in reality, they go through OTC desks and things like that rather than on the actual market purchases. But of course, because Bitcoin is strictly limited in supply, if we're continuing to see these net inflows every single day, ultimately they will run out of Bitcoin at some point because there's a limited amount of Bitcoin. Which basically means if we continue to see relatively large net inflows every weekday into the spot Bitcoin ETFs, ultimately over the long term, that will end up forcing the price of Bitcoin upwards as the buyers are having to bid more and more US dollars per Bitcoin in order to purchase the limited amount of Bitcoin remaining. And so once again, if we continue to see these net inflows basically every weekday, as we've seen over the last couple of weeks, if we continue to see this over the longer term, this is ultimately bullish for the price of Bitcoin. But also, in case you're new to all of this, the Bitcoin ETFs trade on the US stock market, which basically means the Bitcoin ETFs do not trade over the weekend because the stock market is closed over the weekend. So we have no new inflows or outflows over the weekend for the spot Bitcoin ETFs. And with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin charts today, this is on the 3-day time frame, and right now, not much has changed over the last one day. We are still looking very bullish on the larger time frames when we're talking about the higher lows and higher highs, for example. That's technically a bullish trend on the larger time frames, also known as a bull market. And we also still have this hidden bullish divergence on the 3-day time frame, which is technically a trend continuation pattern pointing in the bullish direction on the larger time frames. But as I always say, it's important to understand the difference between the different time frames. So on small time frames, that can change between bullish and bearish basically every day. But when we're zooming out, looking at the bigger picture on the larger time frames, we can see that on the larger time frames, this larger bullish trend contains the short-term movements in the price of Bitcoin. So once again, on smaller time frames, that can flip between bullish and bearish basically every single day. But when we're zooming out, looking at the bigger picture, all of those short-term movements are within this larger bullish trend, at least as of right now. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin chart, we can still see the daily Bitcoin RSI is currently looking more bullish than bearish, as it has already reversed from a bearish trend into now a bullish trend. And obviously, I've been talking about this basically every day over the last 3 weeks or so, since all the way back down here at this exact low, I've been saying how once we confirm a breakout in the RSI, then that is a bullish reversal signal for the price of Bitcoin when we're talking about the short-term bullish and bearish trends here on the daily time frame. Because we can simply take a look at the last couple of times this has happened, and we can look at the outcome of those previous signals. And once again, we're seeing the exact same thing play out right now as we've seen over the last few weeks. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin chart, as of right now, the DXY is still pulling back to the downside, which is technically also a bullish reversal signal for Bitcoin in terms of the trend here on the daily time frame. Because once again, if we're simply looking at the other times where we've seen a bearish trend in the DXY on the daily time frame, this has resulted in a bullish trend, at least in the shorter term, for the price of Bitcoin. And usually those bullish trends on the daily time frame last at least a few weeks, but usually over multiple months. And so obviously at some point in the future, we'll see some sort of short-term bearish trend, whether it's sooner or later. At some point, eventually, we'll have another short-term bearish trend. But once again, that can be within the larger bullish trend, basically these pullbacks along the way that we see during the bullish trend. But at least for now, we're still currently looking bullish, not only on the 3-day charts, but also on the daily time frame due to these bullish signals still actively playing out, at least for now. But obviously, as I've also said recently here on the channel, if we actually see a further bounce back to the upside in the DXY, then that would be a signal telling us that this shorter term bullish trend on the daily time frame might be over if we actually see a bullish reversal in the DXY, which at least as of right now has not actually confirmed. And so as always, I'll be sure to keep you up to date on what's happening here in the DXY and many other important charts in these videos every day. So make sure you subscribe to this channel with notifications turned on so that you don't miss out on any of these important update videos. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin chart, we can see as of right now, the price of Bitcoin, first of all, around half a week ago, perfectly rejected from this area of resistance, sitting in between 72,000 to 74,000. And we rejected it basically exactly at 72,000. And since then, obviously, we saw that rejection and pullback back down towards this previous area of resistance, now acting as new support, which I've also been talking about here on the channel, sitting in between 67,000 to 68,000. And at least for now, the price of Bitcoin is clearly finding support around that area, as we've just had a short-term bounce from that area. And so, like I said a couple of days ago here on the channel, we're likely going to see a bit of choppy sideways price action in the short term for the price of Bitcoin, basically as a cool off after this extreme bullish price action that we saw around 1 to 2 weeks ago. And so ultimately, at least in the somewhat shorter term here on the daily time frame, it's possible the price could just remain range bound in between this area of support and this area of resistance. And it's likely that the next major move on the chart will happen once we confirm a break of one of those areas, which obviously, at least for now, has not happened. And so ultimately, the situation right now is, at least in the somewhat shorter term on the daily time frame, we're looking relatively neutral while the price is in this sideways price range right here. But when we're zooming out, this is currently occurring within a larger bullish movement on the larger time frames, technically speaking. But if we're zooming into the much shorter term, looking at the 1 hour Bitcoin chart, we can see that over the last one day, the price of Bitcoin has continued to play out this bullish divergence that I talked about in my last video back down here. But first of all, around half a week ago, I was talking about this previous triangle pattern back here, which obviously we broke to the downside below that line of support. And I said the moment we break below that line of support, expect to move towards this bearish price target, which was sitting at around 66.9k, which exactly happened as expected. And then we found support in that area, which I also talked about here on the daily time frame, a lot of support in that region right there. And then after we played out that short-term bearish move exactly to that bearish price target, once again, as I said in my last video, we formed this new bullish divergence. And as of right now, we're still currently playing that out. But considering this is only on the 1 hour time frame, I don't necessarily expect this to continue to play out much longer, possibly over the next few hours, maybe over the next day or so. But usually the patterns and signals on the 1 hour time frame play out over around 1 to 2 days max before they start to lose relevance. And so once again, that's why I was saying earlier that here on the daily time frame in the somewhat shorter term, we're still basically looking relatively neutral as the price is in this sideways price range in between this support and this resistance. And when it comes to my Bitcoin trading strategy right now, personally, I have not changed my trading strategy over the last one day. So at least for now, I am still currently in this Bitcoin long position. And since my last video, I haven't made any changes. And so as of right now, this is still currently a 200k Bitcoin long position, as you can see on the left-hand side. And I mentioned in my last video that I did add a little bit to this position right around these local lows due to this bullish divergence and this bearish price target already being hit. And so essentially, I'm just holding onto that Bitcoin long position right now as more of a swing trade, looking to trade the larger move to the upside on the larger timeframes. And even in the worst case scenario, if we completely fail this larger bullish move and we just see a crash right now, even in that scenario, which I don't exactly expect, but even if that played out, I've already taken some profits from this trade, and the stop loss for this long position is sitting well into profits above my entry. And so for anyone new to this, that basically means if the price just crashes, then that stop loss will close the trade automatically at that level in profits. And also, as the price of Bitcoin runs into important levels of resistance along the way, or certain price targets to the upside, at some of those points, I will also look to take some profits off the table, as I already have done along the way for this position. And so this is why it is important to subscribe to this channel with notifications turned on so that you don't miss out on any of these important update videos where I'm actually sharing these trading strategies, where I'm actually using myself with my own money to make a lot of easy profits. And if you also want to take trades just like this for yourself to potentially make a lot of easy profits in crypto, then personally, I'm taking this trade right here over on Bybit. So I'll make sure to leave a link to Bybit down below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link down below this video to make a Bybit account and deposit on that account, then you can get up to a $30,000 deposit bonus, but only if you use that link down below this video. And also, if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here, which is currently a limited time event happening over on Bybit, where you can win up to 1 Ethereum every single day and potentially win a brand new Tesla Cybertruck. And so once again, if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. Once again, first link down below this video if you want to check out this limited time event happening right now, or simply claim those extra bonuses. But for whatever reason, if you cannot access Bybit or if you cannot KYC on Bybit, there is also Bitflex as another crypto exchange, which you don't need KYC for Bitflex. And so I'll also make sure to leave a link to Bitflex down below this video as an alternative crypto exchange similar to Bybit, but once again, you don't need KYC for Bitflex. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, we can see right now in the short term, there is a new area of liquidity starting to build in between around 70.1k to 70,500 approximately. And we can actually see a few $100 million worth of liquidity, basically a few $100 million worth of short positions that will get liquidated once the price actually crosses above that area. And so that basically means it is quite likely in the short term that the price could cross above that area. And once it does do that, it could liquidate a lot of short positions, causing a bit of a short squeeze in the short term, basically pushing the price a little bit further to the upside once we cross above that area. And also, if we're actually zooming out on the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, we can see another area of liquidity sitting closer towards 72,000. And in fact, we actually have over $1 billion of liquidity in between around 71.9k to 72.3k. And so once the price eventually crosses above around 72,000 approximately, that will also liquidate a lot of short positions, potentially resulting in a further short squeeze, at least just in the short term here. But with that being said, taking a look at Ethereum on the daily time frame, and right now the bullish breakout for this bullish falling wedge is technically still active with a bullish price target sitting at around 40.70. But obviously, at least in the shorter term, somewhat similar to Bitcoin at the moment, the price is basically stabilizing, chopping around sideways, cooling off after that extreme bullish move. And we can also see that on the 8-hour time frame. We can see very perfectly that the price is chopping around in between important Fibonacci levels. First of all, we're finding resistance at the 78.6% Fibonacci level of resistance, sitting at around 38.20. And we're also finding pretty much perfect support at this golden pocket, which is a Fibonacci area on the chart, sitting in between 3.6k to 36.50. And so at least for now, the price of ETH is basically chopping around sideways in between those two important areas. So at least in the shorter term, we're actually looking relatively neutral, like I said for Bitcoin earlier in the video. But once the price of ETH eventually confirms a breakout either above this resistance or below this area of support, obviously that will set up the next short-term move and price target. First of all, if we break below this golden pocket, so if we confirm a break with candle closes below around 3.6k, then we could likely see a move down towards around 34.50. Or in a more bearish scenario, we also have another significant level of support down towards around 3.3k. And as for other resistance, if we confirm a breakout above 38.20 with candle closes above that level, then in that case, we would likely continue up towards this previous high, sitting just underneath 4.1k. And if we're zooming further into the short term, looking at the 4-hour time frame, technically speaking, this short-term bearish divergence is still currently active on the chart. And once again, a bearish divergence basically means we should not be expecting a significant amount of bullish momentum in the short term, because usually these bearish divergences play out most commonly in the form of either choppy sideways price action or a short-term pullback as the most likely outcomes. And obviously, over the last 2 days or so, we've seen pretty much exactly that play out as expected. And once again, this could potentially continue to play out, potentially over the weekend, considering usually over the weekend we have lower volatility as there's lower volumes on exchanges. And if we're taking a look at the price of Solana on the 8-hour time frame, right now Solana is just hanging on to this area of support, which is sitting in between around 167 to 172. But basically, if we see a further short-term pullback here in the price of Solana, the next important level of support to pay attention to is sitting at around 160 based on previous resistance. And $160 is a critical level for the price of Solana, because essentially if the price of Solana confirms a break with candle closes back below 160, then that would invalidate the breakout for this inverse head and shoulders pattern, which would invalidate the pattern and the price target. And so of course, if we break below 160 with confirmation, that would be a short-term bearish confirmation signal, basically pointing towards a potential drop to the downside towards this area of support sitting in between around 140 to 144. And in case you're wondering, below that, we also have this significant area of support sitting in between 120 to 128. And as for resistance, in case we actually see a further bounce from one of these levels of support, we still have resistance in this area in between around 182 to 186 approximately, and more resistance in between $200 to $210. And once again, if you want to trade these moves in the price of any crypto, check out those links down below this video to claim those extra bonuses. And if you want to actually know how to trade crypto, no matter if the price is bullish, bearish, or chopping around sideways, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.